Now, there are 5 reasons that you need to hunt northwest winds, and they probably make up some more of these too, but these are the top 5 right here. It's a very important wind, and I want to dispel some myth a little bit right now, but a northwest wind is about 20 to 25% of the winds in your area. And I'm talking the entire upper Midwest, the north half of the country. This could probably extend to the north 2/3 of the country. A lot of folks think that there's northwest winds blowing every day of the hunting season and that's your primary wind. It is not. In fact, usually southeast winds, southerly winds, southwest winds, southwest winds, those are your 35% winds. If you don't believe me, check it out on Weather Underground. You can look up the weather history from any year. You can look up 1976, put in October, November, look at the month, and count the winds for each day where they were out of. And you'll quickly find the northwest wind is not your predominant wind. It's a 20-25% wind. Your southerly winds are your 35% winds, and then east, west, north are all about equal. They're going to give you about 20 to 25% of the time to get one of those. And look at it this way, as the north winds every single day, that means your temperature's getting colder every single day of the season. That doesn't happen. We've already had warm fronts this year. Right now it's 74, 75 in Kentucky where we're at right here. They had 80s last week. They had some northerly winds push us down, but now it's south winds, east winds. The front's coming tomorrow, so it's east winds. Every time you get rain, snow, easterly winds are coming in. So really pay attention to these weather patterns and know that these northwest winds don't come as often as people think. Now, northwest winds are post-front. That means front blows through. It's a cold front. The bigger, the badder, the better. What I mean by that is blizzard, hail, thunderstorms, lightning, heavy snow, heavy rain, heavy winds. It creates a lot of stress. Stress creates an energy burn on deer. Keeps them from actually feeding and going out to those open fields. So the bigger, the badder the storm, the better it is to hunt on the backside. Now we're hunting on the front side of a front this morning or tonight. That's not a bad time to hunt. I'm not saying an east wind's not a bad time to hunt, but it doesn't even compare to a northerly wind or northwest winds. And a lot of times that second day after the front goes through, you start getting southerly winds. So you could have the second day of a front be a higher value that we figured out through HuntCast on HuntWise. That's an algorithm I helped make up. I made this formula algorithm for Outdoor Life 2015. I've been using it for about 30 years. But it's really important to understand that that second day after a front could be a higher value than that day right before that had easterly winds. Really depends on what's going on. I'm not saying that's a bad day to hunt right before a storm, but it's not as good as a lot of people think. So you're looking at big bad storms. What's that equal? Hungry deer. So if you have a bad storm coming through, a lot of times it's lasting for a day and a half. You have heavy winds, doesn't matter what they were out of to begin with, it's probably east, changing to north, northwest as it ushers out. But deer are missing feedings because they feed 5 times in a 24-hour day. A portion of those feedings at night are out in open hardwoods where they're hitting acorns, out in open fields, food plots. If they can't go out there because there's such a bad storm and it's so stressful, they're missing quality feeding opportunities. If the storm's really bad, it's creating a lot of stress, a lot of noise. That's a second way that they're losing energy. And then a third way is that they're actually feeling that temperature drop. So they have to burn energy to stay warm. So there's 3 ways they lose energy. And what that means is as soon as the front breaks, they're hungry. They want to put the feed back on because they've been missing feeding for a day, day and a half. And that's why that day after the front is so critical, because after that front slides through a day or two, it's just like us. If we're lost in the wilderness and we get out and we want to actually eat because we missed food for 36 hours, 48 hours, feels like we're starving when we're really not, we put the feed bag on, but we don't do it the second day and the third day. That decrease in temperature will create good movement, and that's why that second day can be a high quality one, just because all of a sudden it dropped from a high of 72 in late October, early November, and now there's a high of 47. That means those subsequent days are going to be pretty high value, especially if they're in the pre-rut, rut lockdown, peak rut, post-rut, and all those phases. So number 3, the best morning winds that you're going to go back into a bedding area and hunt are typically, I want to hunt right after that storm comes through in that cold front. That means northwest winds. So a lot of my best morning stands, I focus on westerly, northwesterly winds as that front is ushering out, and that puts me smack dab in the middle of those northwest winds on the back side of a bedding area, waiting for deer to come back to me during the pre-rut, rut, second rut, outstanding time. So you'll find a high percentage of my bucks, 70% have been shot in the morning. I'd say 50%, 40% of those have been shot with northwest wind. So I'm always looking for that next great northwest wind morning stand that I save for the rut. Don't burn it out too early. Number 4, low temp buck movements. There's a lot of studies on this that show that when you start getting up into the 60s, 70s, 80s for daytime highs, the buck movement pictures go down. They have big, hot bodies. Looking at their winter coats that are happening and taking place in late September, early October, they simply just do not want to move. So when you have those deer and those bucks, they have this heavy coat on, and you have warm days, there's at some point they just don't want to move at all. That doesn't mean they're not even hitting water holes. They're not moving that far. They just don't want to expend the energy. However, when it gets cold, they're hitting water holes, they're moving a lot, and you see historical buck movements of under 50 degrees daytime highs. If you're in a southern location, that 50 degrees won't matter. If you're in Florida and it's in the 60s, 70s, that's a lot different than 80s, 90s. If you're in northern Minnesota and you have daytime highs in the 30s and 40s, when it was just 50s and 60s before, or 60 and 70, huge difference. So it's all relative based on north to south. There's no magical temperature. You can't just say they move great under 50, because what's that mean? That could be warm in some cases for northern Wisconsin. That could be extremely cold and unattainable in Florida during that time of year. So it's all relative. Just look for those temperature drops. But low temperatures equal more movement. You can just check that out on your cell cameras, your trail cameras. Just look at that. When the temperatures cool down, water hole use, mock scrape, cruising, buck movement in general picks up, and that equals a northwest wind. Number 5, boy, when you have northwest winds and you have those cold fronts and you're either hunting an evening food source all season long, doesn't matter if it's feeding front in October or late season feeding opportunity on a food source that's still around, even an old stand of acorns that's remote, and you're hunting during the middle of the day in the late season with cold temperatures, great time to hunt, and certainly during the rut. Yeah, the rut is a great time to hunt. You can shoot a buck at any time, but there are 1% days during the rut of opportunity, and there's 50% days during the rut of opportunity. And when you find those cold temperatures and you find northwest winds, you're going to maximize the sits and the locations, get the most out of your best stand locations when you have northwest winds. Doesn't matter if it's on a food source or your favorite rut stand. Northwest winds can't be beat. You have to focus on them. Make sure if you're hunting public land that you get some northwest wind stands for those perfect times. I went down, I think it was 2016, down to Ohio, the Monday before Thanksgiving. I drove down there on Sunday afternoon, evening, got there at 3:30 in the morning, slept in the truck for a half hour, 40 minutes, went out to my stand, shot a buck 2 hours into first light, one of our target bucks, on public land with a bow. And the reason for that was because there was about a 35 to 40 degree temperature drop. There were 50-mile-an-hour plus winds. I followed that. I was on the heels of that. It was actually still windy in the morning, but everything had cleared out. I was hunting those cold northwest winds. I was shivering. Buck came right into my lap. The entire reason that I drove 11, 12 hours down there and over 800 miles to hunt one way, just for a couple mornings, was because of that cold front, because of those northwest winds. It paid off, and it'll pay off for you if you pay attention to those northwest winds and you plan for it all hunting season long. Folks, I want to make sure you check out my web class video series, whether it's how to design your food plot program or how to design your property in general. And we have a new one coming out that'll be how to hunt the rut. But these bucks back here are a testament. Some of these bucks go back to 93. They're even in different states. I urge you to check out those web classes so that you can help yourself, help your land, help your hunt. The link is in the description. And also for those that have tried them out, I encourage you to offer some feedback in the comments below. Thank you.